All right. Well, it's Lynn Watts here with Wyatt the Wonder Dog Books, and today is a really fun, exciting day because I have another children's author with me today, and this is Brittany Petish, right? I'm saying your name right. All right. And I recently met Brittany at a story time for kids that was at a local bookstore, the Brown Dog Bookstore. And so we got to talking, and I think her books are just great for classroom lessons, of course, which is what I'm very interested in, and teaching social emotional skills. So we're going to spend a little time today introducing Brittany and her book. I have one, but she's written a lot more. I'll let her tell you about it. We'll talk about Tate the Wonder Doodle, which it's kind of like Wyatt the Wonder Dog. So we have a lot in common. So welcome, Brittany. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Well,
It was
thanks for,
wonderful to
yeah,
meet you.
yeah,
Great to be here.
thanks. Thanks so much. All right. So I always think that this is true for me, even when I read a book just for fun. I always like to know what's the story behind the story. In other words, what kind of got you started writing? I know you've written a lot of books, so it's not just this one, but how did you get interested in writing children's books? What happened? What's your journey been with that?
So it's been a series of events that I feel like has led me to this. The first being I lost my soul dog about a year and a half ago. She was my best friend. Her name was Annabelle. She had special needs herself. She had seizures, was blind at night, a handful of things. And when she passed, I had this huge hole in my heart and I needed something to fill it. So I
Mhm.
started going up to the Blue Ridge Mountains to escape, to have a change of pace, a change of scenery. And I met this deer that had a torn ear and she walked with a gentle limp and I fell in love with her. She started eating apples out of my hand and I named her Sally. And I feel like in a way we kind of healed each other.
Wow. All right.
She's very brave and courageous, and that was actually the first book that I wrote was about her. It wasn't ready to talk about Annabelle yet and that journey and that love. That story was still unfolding, I think. And so I started with writing Sally the Brave, and I just actually am in the process of publishing her continuation because life continues and she's had a baby. And I got to watch her baby this summer, which is pretty incredible.
Oh,
So a
wow.
year from publishing or post-publishing, I actually got to see Sally's baby and she brought it to the yard up there that I stay in and we'll get to watch her be a mom. And so we wrote the second book that goes with it.
Wow. That's an amazing story. So this is a wild deer. It's not a deer that's in a, I don't know, some sort of petting zoo or something. Okay, just a wild deer. And over time, you befriended her, and now the story continues. I love that. I love that. Um, so, what what inspired you? This is your most recent book, I think, Tate. Do I have that right, or is
Nope,
there
that
more?
actually was one of my first books that I wrote.
Oh, okay,
So I have what I call the core four. And so
okay,
that is Sally the Brave. That's in English and Spanish. Tate the Wonder Doodle was a part of that. I started with my immediate animals in my world and my circle. So
okay.
Sally started it all. Tate was another one because he's my service and therapy dog. I wrote Goodbye Blue, which is about Annabelle and her passing. And then I have a bunny. And so I wrote Daisy May about my bunny.
Oh,
So those are
okay,
all in English and Spanish. And those are the four that I started with.
okay, all right. And just to say, all your books are on Amazon, and where else can people find them? If they're
truehearttales.com. And if
okay.
you buy them directly from me, there are education guides that go with a lot of them, and then I will sign them.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a nice bonus. Wonderful. All right. Um, so you mentioned there's Sally the Brave, and then Tate the Wonder Doodle. He's courageous. Do I have that right? Is that the main characteristic you would say?
So I would say that he is courageous, and he came from a hard start, so he's resilient. So I think that that one teaches resilience
Okay.
in spite of beginnings that are difficult.
Okay. Yeah, that is a good story. Um, So, and then what are some of the other skills that your books cover? Because I know you have 20 in all. Do I remember that correctly?
Yeah, I do.
Wow.
So each one, the animal teaches a lesson that feels appropriate to what the animal's already displaying and how they're living. So they're not made up stories, they're just discovered, I always like to say, from real life. So Sally teaches bravery and courage. Annabelle is about grief. Obviously, Goodbye Blue is about grief and loss, and how love lives with us or stays with us. It just looks a little bit different. I have worked with different wildlife partners, zoos, conservation centers, and things like that, and worked with their animals. One of my favorite is with Yellow River. They have this steer named Ferdinand, and he was the last to eat in the trough. He let everybody, he was supposed to be beef cattle, which means that they just kind of fatten them up, and then unfortunately they have a sad life, or an end of life that, is hard. But he was the last to eat. He would wait for everybody to eat in the trough. The trough would often be empty. And so he never gained the weight that he needed to gain because of his compassionate heart.
Wow.
And he was actually saved and sent to Yellow River to live out his days. So he's one of the oldest deer in captivity because he had this kind and gentle heart and was waiting. So he changed the whole course of his life by how he lived.
Oh my goodness. Okay. That is a very interesting story. Okay.
Um,
Any others that you think you would like to
yeah,
highlight?
Bob, I worked with Wild Nest in Decatur, and so that's a hummingbird, and she lost her bobtail by a cat. So having outdoor cats often causes trouble for other wildlife. And hummingbirds only grow their tails back, their tail feathers and their whole feathers once a year. And it takes a whole entire year to produce enough feathers. And our hummingbirds fly the furthest distance of any migratory hummingbird. They have to fly over the Gulf of Mexico. And so it's over 500 miles in one stop, and they have to be whole for that journey. And because Bob had had her bobtail kind of pulled off, she ended up in the sanctuary care. And she had this whole season of waiting and patience that she had to go through before she could make this journey of wholeness. She was able to be released and is out there thriving, we hope. But that one is about patience and waiting and that season and just being whole. So each one of them, I've observed the wildlife. I've talked to the people that love and care for them and have gotten them stronger or just love and care for them in their everyday life. And we found the story that's already there, and then I translate it through a picture book.
Wow. Okay. So just to be clear, I had started to ask this early on. All of the stories are about real animals. So they're not made up stories. They're real animals that you met, that you interacted with, and learned about them and their characteristics, and then developed the story kind of around the events of their life. Is that
Correct. That's
okay?
why I call the brand and the publishing company True Heart Tales, Tails, like animal tales, uh,
Okay.
because they are all true stories.
Okay. And so my assumption is that you're still also looking for stories, that this isn't something that is one and done. You are continuing to always be on the lookout for animals anywhere that could teach something through their life and their experiences.
I am. I'm actually in the process of writing a book about great blue herons out in Seattle with the Heron Helpers, which was really exciting. I got to go and see they have one of the largest colonies in the United States at the Ballack Locks. So I was able to see all of the herons and meet the people
Hmm.
that care for them and protect them so that they can keep coming back year after year. The manuscript has been approved, the cover is designed, and I'm just working on the interior layout and illustration. I'm also working with Chattahoochee Nature Center. They have two eagles, a male and a female, bald eagles. And so we're writing and developing a book there with Chattahoochee Nature Center. Um, and I was down in Jekyll over the summer, and I went out with some researchers and got to see some Eastern Diamondback rattlesnakes. I actually
Oh
was in the
my.
marsh
All
in the
right.
swamp. I joked about going to the swamp, and then I followed the people that care for them and the scientists into the swamp, literally. And we got to see them with telemetry and the trackers. And
Wow.
while I was there. I got to go on night patrol and see a sea turtle lay 120 eggs, which was pretty magical. And
Oh,
then
wow. Okay.
was covered in bioluminescence. So at the end, as she went away, the scientist raked her shell and she glowed as she kind of crawled her way back into the ocean, which just gave me goosebumps and was incredible. And then I got to see an alligator program while I was down there and hear and meet about their famous alligator striker. So I have 3 books coming out about that. So my books are expanding beyond just kind of the immediate bubble that we're in, which is really exciting.
Wow. Wow. It seems this could go on a long time. There's a lot of animals and a lot of interesting, situations out there. So it sounds like not only could, and I guess my question is this also kind of part of the book or books? Not only could kids learn some skills personally that they could use, but they also learn a lot about wildlife, whether that's hummingbirds and how they migrate or grow tail feathers or, whatever. So there's more than that. There's a lot to the book to learn.
There is. So I structure the book with the narrative, the story, and the story always has a social emotional learning component like yours do as well. So they're teaching one of those important skills, but not by the animals talking or doing anything that they're not doing in real life, just by observation. And what I'm hoping is that children slow down and they observe nature and they appreciate it and they observe moments in their real life. I feel like our world is such a fast-paced, attention-driven world. And if we slow down and appreciate it, there's a lot of beauty around us. And so that's my hope that the story kind of opens up that world for the children and the parents. And then in the back, I always have a caregiver note that goes into whatever the social emotional learning lesson is, some of the questions that their child may ask them to prep and prepare them. This is all of my later books that have this structure now that I've developed, so that they're ready to have those discussions. And then we talk about meeting the animal. So you get to see pictures of the real animal in their life and learn about them, their breed, their whatever type of animal they are, where they fall in the animal kingdom, the science around them, and all of that. And then ways that you can help and support those animals
The
in
different
the wild.
organizations. All right.
Correct. The organizations, the animals in the wild, what you can do to help. You find a lost bird, how to build a baby bird, how to build a nest, a makeshift nest, so that you can actually help and give back and take those steps. So each one of them has some kind of a tiny little lesson or action steps to hopefully move to conservation and stewardship.
Okay. Awesome. So I'm just envisioning that each of your books could fit into a whole lot of different categories in terms of classroom learning. There's a whole nature aspect and endangered species aspect, or at least taking care of animals aspect, and then social emotional, which relates to us. What book was the most challenging for you to write? Was there one that was challenging for, I don't know, any particular reason?
I would say not to write, but to illustrate. I wrote Bobby and the Fruits, and it's about fruit bats. And illustrating fruit bats is, and getting the wing structure and everything true is so complicated in how they move and turn. And they have in their wings, they have 5 fingers, just like we do. So positioning all of that properly was incredibly challenging.
Oh,
So I would
wow.
say that was
Okay.
hardest to illustrate.
So
And to
maybe I'm not sure I even mentioned this. You illustrate all the books as well as write them. All right.
I
So you just cover all the bases here. You lay it out, publish it, write it, illustrate it, research it. So
I
there's a
do.
lot in each book.
And then I make sure that there's a scientist or subject matter expert that is vetting anything that's in the story so that we're true to the animal, true to the species, true to those specifications and those nuances. And I've been able to meet some incredible people on this journey that are just absolutely brilliant. So that's been to me one of my favorite parts is getting out, meeting the animals, meeting the people that have dedicated their lives to protecting these animals and protecting nature.
Okay. So, what have these stories meant to you personally? Have they changed? your perspective of things, or have they helped you in some ways? I know you mentioned the first one was a healing journey for you in terms of the loss of your dog. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I would say they felt like a heart hug, or that's my goal. And I feel like they're connecting us in a world that's increasingly disconnected.
Mm.
I have been to Choa to read to the children. I have been to different libraries, different nature centers, tons of different partnerships that I've been blessed to be able to kind of cultivate over the past year. But it's always been like this thread that when I share my story, it's not me just sharing the story of what I discovered. People often tell me their stories back about an animal that they loved or something that they are going through. And so they've been this connector in this increasingly disconnected world. And that to me has been the best part.
Okay. Um, so I think you've pretty much mentioned already that these are really useful in the classroom, which is a lot of what I focus on. But I think also when we write stories like this, they can be very useful for parents, grandparents, just really anybody that works with or influences children. Do you have any particular experiences that have kind of shown how your books have made that sort of impact with anybody?
I do. I have spent 20 years working with children on the autism spectrum. And so I have gotten to watch children grow up and become and help them navigate a world that always doesn't give them time and patience and care that it should, and find their voice. And so one of my very first story times, I did it at a bookshop over here in Roswell. Um, and I invited one of my families, one of my little boys that I have known. Well, he's not a little boy anymore. I've known him since he was about 3, and he is 22.
Oh, wow. Okay.
For story time, but he's never sat and been to a story time like that in a bookstore. So he got to hear and smile and engage and just
Uh-huh.
have an experience that he might not have had. Um, and there's beauty in that to me. There's beauty, and I've gotten to go do story times at farms with families and individuals, and there's farm animals around us, which is, and they're smelling the books and licking the stuffed animals and playing with the kids, and they're giggling while we're reading these stories. And it's just, there's been so much magic in all of this. And so much beauty. And to me, that's been the best part. It's been such a fun year. And I've done all of this in a year. So July 31st is actually my 1 year anniversary of True Heart Tales.
That's what I think is incredible. This is quite a um, endeavor, and you have done so much in a year. I think it's pretty amazing. Writing one book in a year is pretty hard sometimes, but getting 20 out there and then illustrating it, publishing it, meeting all these animals, working with all these different organizations. I think you're doing a great job. You're inspiring, I think, and I think a lot of people listening to this are going to really be inspired by what you've done, as much as by the books as well. You know that it's possible to to touch the world in such an important way through story, which honestly, and this isn't just my opinion, research shows as well that story is one of the best ways for people to learn. So, hearing a story can really transform someone's life. And I think that's why books for children can be so very important. That's why they need to have, I think, such a good message, something that can really lift kids up and help them in all the different things that they might face throughout the world. So, basically, kudos to you for stepping into that role. I think it's a very important one to do. Um, where can people find your books? Let's just remind people, how they can find you, find your books if they're interested in you coming to visit for a story hour or to do another story about an animal or what. How do they get in touch with you and find your books?
True Heart Tales. And
True
it's
Heart Tales.
ILS, like the animal tales.com
Okay.
is my website. And from there, my email is there. You'll be able to reach out if you'd like to schedule an event. If you have an animal that has a compelling story, I always love to hear it and then potentially come and meet you and your animal that you love so dearly. And that's where you also can buy my books as well as on Amazon.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thanks so much for taking this time and sharing your story. I know lots of people are going to be inspired by what you're doing, and we'll look into your books. And I'll recommend this one that I have and that I've heard the story of. I think it's a really good one, all about this little dog that had such a hard start to life and was so um, scared and nervous, and you really rescued him. But is what we say a lot of times. I know I have a rescue dog. A lot of times we say we rescued the dog, but they rescued us in some way as well. And I
They
think that's kind of clear from the story as well, that he had a lot to share, and that now you take him with you a lot of times to the story time. So, which was one of the fun things about the time that I met you, is you had Tate with you, and I got to meet him as well as you. So, our animals can certainly inspire us, I think.
they can. And that's my hope is that they inspire others to slow down and to notice.
Good point. Very good point. All right. Well, thanks so much for this time together. And, I look forward to all the things that you're going to be doing in the future and your next inspiring story.
Thank
Thanks.
you for having me.